So the first thing to do is have a plan to say, okay, how much am I going to spend in the next 1 to 3 years on my staying alive money, keeping everything going that I need to keep going? Let's carve out that piece and make it do its thing and protect it. And then my 3 to 5, 3 to 7, and my 7 and beyond. So yeah, you've got to know how much risk you've got, but most importantly is you've got to say, even if I don't have any risk, I still have to have that stuff growing. So let's do a 3-bucket strategy to this and get your now, later, and much later money carved out. We've been doing this for 20 years and serving hundreds of families. We're going to bring solutions to your situation.
How do you choose a financial advisor? How do you know who you should work with?
That's the value of that 210 core, moving everything towards a purpose on purpose.
Hey everybody, welcome to Your Retirement Blueprint Podcast, the show that empowers you to create a life of financial confidence so you can live your best life today. My name's Kendall Stahl, alongside my co-host, Mr. Phil Cooper.
Hey everybody. Hi, Kendall.
How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good deal. It's warm out. We feel like spring's coming.
Spring is early this year.
Hopefully it stays that way.
I hope so too, yeah.
I'm really excited about today's topic.
Why are you excited?
Do you know what today's topic is?
I think I do.
If I had a t-shirt, it would be on my t-shirt.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's my slogan. We're going to talk about not being a forced seller in a down market.
Man, I should have known that. I blew that opportunity.
Like my number one saying around here.
Man, I guess. It's either that or buy me pizza.
Yeah.
Or something like
Something
that.
like that.
Yeah.
Wonder if they know about monocles.
I do.
Anyways, so don't be a forced seller in a down market.
Yeah,
that's what we're going to talk about today.
That's actually great advice.
It is. We try to give that out around here.
Yeah.
Anyways, what does that mean to you?
Well, first of all, I don't want to be a forced anything, right?
Yep.
So
would agree with
to be a forced seller in a down market, it means something is going wrong. Something happened. First of all, the market went down, and you're being forced to do something that's not going to be beneficial to you. So
yeah,
maybe we should elaborate on what that means further.
Sure. Yeah. So essentially what it means is you get to retirement or at some age where you have to start taking money out of your accounts, whether you want to or not, right? So you might need income to live on. Most people do.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have to take money out each month or year, or however you choose to do it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And the bill's got to be paid. So if the market's up, you got to take it out. If the market's down, you got to take it out. And if you take it out when the market's down, that can get ugly in a hurry.
Yeah, we have a problem. A lot of folks we have talked to, we call that a sequence of returns problem, don't we?
That's the fancy.
And maybe I'm giving away too much early on in the podcast here, but when the market goes down, what a lot of people are doing is say, I still have to buy groceries. I got to keep the lights on. I got to put shoes on the kids' feet. I got to pay the mortgage. I got to do these things. And if the market goes down and you reach into your bucket and pull some money out, when that market returns, there's not enough money in there for it to come back to where it came from. Right. That could pose a serious threat to someone's financial future.
Yeah, and it's not just people that need the income to live on. It's folks that are going to get out to ages later in life in their 70s that are going to have to take money out of their accounts to make the IRS happy.
Absolutely, yeah.
They call that required minimum distribution, and I always like to ask a room full of people when that starts now because they all yell out different ages.
Well, it used to be so clear. There was 1 year, and then when the government gets involved, it just gets all gray, right? Yeah. Now there's so many. So based on the year that you were born, now it's so convoluted.
So it used to be 70, now it's 72,
73, 74, yeah, whatever age.
There.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to get at here is every now and then I'll run into someone that says, well, I don't, I've got enough income coming in from pensions or Social Security or, whatever sources of income they have. Like, I don't really have to take money out, so I don't need to worry about the market being down the same time that they have to take out to live on. But eventually, you have the wrong kind of dollars, meaning IRA dollars, 401k dollars, things like that in your 70s, you're going to have to, whether you need that money to live on or not.
Correct. Yep, I agree.
There's an example that we share. And so this is what they call cowboy math. Okay.
I like the
Comes
boots,
with
by the
cowboy boots today.
Yep. Okay.
Cowboy math for cowboy boots. It's a rarity here. But what it is it's just a slang term for, hey, these are big round numbers. Like, don't hold me to them.
Okay. All right.
You ever heard this before?
Never heard this in my life. I'm with you folks. I'm new to this today.
Okay. So when I say we're going to do some cowboy math,
all right,
basically it means we're going to use round numbers. Like, don't hold me to it exactly. This is for an example.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
So 2 different couples or 2 different people, doesn't really matter, right? Start with $1 million at 65.
Okay.
and we'll say they got to pull $50,000 a year out to live on. I've got the example in my head that I'm trying to copy in my head. Probably should have printed it out. And so they're gonna have $1 million. They're gonna take $50,000 out a year, each year until age 90.
All right.
Okay. Average rate of return in both scenarios is going to be 6%, I believe.
All right.
Okay. But so scenarios are very similar. Okay. We got $1 million on one side. We got $1 million on the other. We're taking 50 grand out, each one of them to live on. We're going to have an average rate of return 6% for from 65 to 90. Okay. So however many years that is.
That is 25 years.
25 years. There you go. Okay. And we're using the S&P, and we're going to repeat it over and over. I think the worst 10 years of the S&P, I think is what it is.
Okay.
And so the only difference on the 2 pages is there's 2 differences. The ending balance, okay? First lady or couple or whoever, individual, ended at 90 with like $1.5 million.
Okay, so they started with $1 million.
Yep.
For 25 years, they pulled $50,000 a year out, and you're saying they had $1.5 million left over?
You got it. 6% rate of return.
Because of a rate of return, okay.
Other couple, same story. Started with $1 million, pulled 50 grand a year out. Average rate of return is 6%.
Okay.
But they ran out somewhere in their mid 80s.
Okay, what you're trying to tell
Now,
me,
you
Mr.
know
Cowboy,
how this can be.
Mr. Cowboy Math.
Yeah.
You're trying to tell me both sets of individuals had $1 million.
Yeah.
They both pulled $50,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
They both did it for 25 years. They both got a 6% rate of return.
Yep.
But one has $1.5 million and one ran out of money?
Yep. So the difference there is basically we flipped the rate of returns over. So the folks that ran out of money, those first few years, they were pretty rough years. They were negative years.
Okay.
In other words, they were a forced seller in a down market.
Okay, I like where this is going.
There you go. They had to take money out each year when the market was going down.
So what's the solution, Kendall?
I don't know. That's what
If I
got
to pull money out of my IRA or my 401k and the market's down, what should I do?
Well, you should have a plan.
Stay tuned, folks. This is where it gets really good. This is where the wisdom is about to happen. You should have a plan.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to have some sort of a plan, but basically, the way I always like to talk about it is need to have places that are principal protected and can get reasonable rates of return that you can pull money from.
Yeah.
Meaning when you're pulling money out, it doesn't necessarily have to be, fancy and cool and have big rates of return. We need to have that steady Eddie type of money that
I agree with you.
You can't be taking big losses in.
In all seriousness, and folks that are tuning into the show, in all seriousness, I was joking with Kendall and acting like we hadn't heard this before. There is a problem called a sequence of returns problem. And what that means is if you're having to pull that $50,000 a year out and you're a forced seller in a down market, in other words, if the market went down 10% and you're reaching in and pulling your $50,000 out,
yeah,
there's a chance that the market never has enough power behind it to gain back what you took out and what the market took out. So what we like to tell people is, and Kendall alluded to this, is have a plan. Do something like we refer to as called bucketing your money. In other words, have your money that is principal protected.
Sure.
If the market goes down, it's not going with it.
It's all kinds of different tools you can do that.
There's a lot of tools for that, especially now that interest rates have returned, right?
It's a lot easier.
It's a lot easier. So now if you are required to pull that $50,000 a year out, pull it out of something that's not going down if the market goes down. Then when the market runs back up, you did not deplete your principal, and you're going to be that person at the end of 25 years that has the $1.5 million sitting in your bucket versus somebody who literally is wondering if they're going to make it to the finish line.
I think what we're talking about today, it's a lot like inflation. Like it's kind of this silent killer.
Yeah.
Like you don't really feel it. You don't really know the effects until it's kind of like too late.
Until it's too late, yeah. And
I think a lot of people don't understand how much risk they have in their different accounts, right? And they're going to take some money out, and if the market's down, they're going to take some money out. And if they haven't heard this podcast or seen an example of it, like they don't really know what they're missing out on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think understanding how much risk you have is important. That's one of the biggest things. Like, so I've been in the industry for 9-10 years now, something like that. And I think when COVID happened, that was like the first big market correction that I lived through in this industry, I guess. And so the biggest thing that I realized is that I don't think people understand how much risk they have.
Yeah. We do this illustration You've seen this 100 times. We do this illustration. We show folks that if they're needing to take that $50,000 a year out,
Yeah.
they could actually, when inflation happens, if they do this properly, they can actually take out more than $50,000 later and still have more than they started with in this whole plan. That would have felt really, really good the last couple of years. I know a lot of people that have sat in our conference rooms and talked to us and said, man, I'm wondering, am I going to be able to have enough money to buy all the things I'm used to buying, because prices took off, right?
Yeah.
We were, total side story, we were someplace the other day and saw a pickup truck for sale. And that I looked at the sticker price in this pickup truck. It was $94,000.
Okay, you want to go down that road for a minute. So Carrie, as you know her, the audience doesn't, but she's always looking at new cars. Right?
Yeah.
We're not getting a new car. But
and you always say that too, and you always drive away in a new car.
yeah, well, this time I'm putting my foot down.
Oh, okay. We'll see how this goes.
Well, you'll be on my side here, okay? So she currently has an electric car that she drives, which she loves, and doesn't think she can go away from it. But the problem is it's not big enough. Okay. So she's on the hunt for an electric car that drives like a golf cart. But it's bigger, right?
Okay.
So she's got a Tesla.
It's a big golf cart.
So her dilemma is she's got a Tesla. She's not willing to go to the next step up, which is the Batwing doors, because that's too much of a thing. Okay. So she's been looking at cars. Comes across a Cadillac.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the new, I don't know what it is, Cadillac SUV. Apparently it's big enough, 7-seater, whatever, electric. $175,000.
Okay. All right.
Believe that?
No, I cannot believe that.
So inflation, it's a thing.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Let's put that in perspective, okay?
So we're not buying that car, just to be clear.
If you folks see a Cadillac in the parking lot here, it's Kendall's. Yeah.
No way.
I paid $125,000 for my house that I've lived in for 28 years.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
That's inflation.
So I think what we're trying to say is inflation's a thing. You're going to have to take money out to live on. Make sure you understand how much risk you have.
Yeah.
And that it's in the right places.
The topic we started this whole conversation was don't be a forced seller in a down market. Now, come back to that inflation topic for a moment. Let's say this $50,000 a year, inflation happens and people say, I cannot live on $50,000 anymore. I've got to have more money come out. We've got to make sure that principal is continually growing, even if you're pulling money out of there, because I know you may not be buying $175,000 Cadillacs, but we are buying groceries and shoes, and that healthcare bill you got to pay. I always say, sitting on the counter, you got to pay next week. It costs more money to be alive today than it did yesterday. And we've got to make sure that when you're reaching into your bucket, no one else is reaching in that bucket with you. That's being that forced seller.
How do people what's the best way for them to figure out if they are in that situation or not?
Yeah. I think the first thing to do is to have an assessment done on how much risk you have in your portfolio. And we have the tools to help folks do that. But number two, and really should be number one, is to have a plan, right?
Yeah.
To say, this is my right now money. My right now money is my next 1 to 3 year money. That's the protected piece. We've got to have that protected, because the market will cycle. It will go way up. It will go way down. It may go nowhere. It may go sideways. But that first 1 to 3 year piece of money, that's what stuff I've got to pull out in the next 1 to 3 years. That cannot go down in value. That's got to be protected. Then we've got my 3 to 7 year money. That money can cycle a little bit, but not as much. And then my 7 years and beyond, that can cycle a lot, because I've got 7 years and beyond. So the first thing to do is have a plan to say, okay, how much am I going to spend in the next 1 to 3 years on my staying alive money, keeping everything going that I need to keep going? Let's carve out that piece and make it do its thing and protect it. And then my 3 to 5, 3 to 7, and my 7 and beyond. So yeah, you've got to know how much risk you've got, but most importantly is you've got to say, even if I don't have any risk, I still have to have that stuff growing. So let's do a 3-bucket strategy to this and get your now, later, and much later money carved out.
So a couple of things. I think sometimes when we talk about this, we talk about hey, we need to be principal protected and all that, and I think maybe sometimes that comes across as pretty conservative, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think what people need to understand is I'm a believer in the market.
Yeah, I am too.
It's always gonna go up, right? As long as
over enough time, give it enough time.
We have one thing, time.
Yeah.
Right. And having those buckets of money you talked about,
mm-hmm.
bucketed out like that,
mm-hmm.
that allows you to buy time essentially
Right.
for the market to do its thing and recover.
It's not timing the market that's important.
Right.
It's time in the market that's important. We have to have enough time in the market. And if you don't have enough time because you're living on those dollars, you're timing the market. You're pulling money out, hoping this is a good time. Hopefully it's not a downtime, when come to find out it was a downtime. So don't try to time the market. Just have enough time in the market.
Yeah, and it just becomes more stressful for everybody too.
Including your advisor.
Yeah.
Yeah, including your family, including yourself. We've had so many people from doing this for so many years that just say, I never dreamed my retirement would look like this, with sleepless nights and worry and concerns. And what if this person gets elected? Or what if interest rates do that? Or what if taxes do that? And what if the market does that? How about just have a plan?
Yeah.
And take all that out of there?
Yeah.
Who cares?
Because kind of like we talked about earlier, if you retire and you start living off money in those wrong years, right? You don't have a plan.
You could be that.
And then you're like, did I retire in the right years or did I not? And you don't really know until you already did it.
Yeah.
And
It's called the tale of the unlucky investor. And you don't want to be the unlucky investor. But the problem is you don't get to know early what the market is going to do the year you retire. So have a plan.
Yeah. So the way that we or any advisor should be kind of trying to figure out how much risk someone has is taking your holdings that you have on your statements or in your 401k or however you want to say it, and dumping them into some sort of a system. And at least the way we do it, this may not be how everybody does it, is we score them out on a scale from 1 to 99, right? So 1's like cash in the bank, 99's as risky as you can get. And then we'll just score each account out on that scale. And so for a reference point for everyone, the S&P 500 or the Dow or whatever, the stock market, the number you hear on the radio, see on the TV, or I guess maybe look at your stock app, maybe is more relevant, but that's going to come back at like a risk score of 75. And so then the next question is like,
where should you be on that?
Where should you be?
Yeah, how much you need, right? And that's that 3-bucket strategy.
Yeah.
The older you get, the less you should have on that risk score.
Yep.
And quite honestly, and because I'm now in that aged bracket, I can say it to those who are aged, we may not have enough time for that market to recover, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to have that bucketing strategy and say, where should I be on that scale? And we can help them determine that too.
Yeah. So the simple rule of thumb is you take the number 100 minus your age, whatever the answer is kind of generally speaking where maybe you could be at on that scale.
Yeah, let's do the simple math on that. If you've got a 20-year-old person, 20 minus 100 is 80. They can handle all the risk in the world. Why? They're 20 years old.
They got time.
They got time ahead of them. If you're 80 years old, you ought to be on the other side of that and say my risk score ought to be right in the 20s maybe.
But also I think, that's very general overview of where you should be on the scale. But there are some folks that have pensions, have Social Security, rental property, income, stuff like that. And then they've got money invested in. They don't really need that money to live on, right? Those folks maybe could break that rule and have a little more risk
means very little to
if
them,
they wanted to.
The people that should be concerned about that are the ones that have this bucket of money that bucket has got to last them the rest of their life, no matter how long that life is.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that should be concerned.
Yep. Sounds good. So I think moral of the story today is, as usual, have a plan. That's typically usually what we wrap up with. But understand how much risk you have. Don't be a forced seller down market. Fancy word for that is understand if you have a sequence of returns risk.
Agreed.
Okay.
Have a plan.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Well, it's time for This Week in History.
All right.
So you ready for This Week in History? Let's see if you've got any more of that totally useless knowledge up there in your brain.
There's a little bit left.
A little bit? All right. What happened in 1876?
1876. Give me just a hint. Just throw a hint to me.
It has something to do with this. Okay.
Strike one.
Yeah, Alexander Graham Bell received a patent for the telephone.
Okay.
62.
1862?
1862.
1862.
Yep. The first issue of U.S. government paper money occurred as a $5, $10, and $20 bills began to circulate. But the $20 bill was like big.
That was some cash. It still is to me.
Yeah. I still got a few of those.
It's still a lot of money to me.
Don't do much anymore. Yep. So that's This Week in History. There you go.
Thank you for that knowledge.
I was hoping you would, usually you just pull one out of your hat.
No, I got nothing. I got nothing on this one.
Anyways. All right. Well, thanks for joining us today. As usual, if this was helpful information and you want to be notified when we upload another episode, just hit the buttons that would apply for that. Talk to you next week.
Thanks
See ya.
for watching.